everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 512, Stories Around the World. Hello, Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as always with Eddie. Well, we were both on little excursions. So how was your trip to London town, as old friend of the podcast Sam would call it?
Yeah, it was good, and I saw a friend of the podcast, Sam, while I was there. It was good.
Of the podcast.
Yeah, I also got to see friend of the podcast, just to use that again, John Buckley play for Blackburn Rovers in the League Cup on last Wednesday against West Ham, and saw the longest penalty shootout I'll probably ever see in person. The first 19 penalties were scored, which was kind of mind-blowing. And
did this prompt you to look up what the record is? Because I thought about it, but I did not look it up. But that has to be close. So, for those who don't follow Blackburn Rovers, they had their League Cup match against West Ham, and it went to penalties. And each of the first 9 players on each team made it, and then a Blackburn player made it, and then the West Ham player missed on the 20th penalty.
The 20th, yeah. So I've just looked up, the longest penalty shootout is 27 rounds. So a total of 54
but that doesn't
penalties.
mean that they made it consecutively. Like someone could have missed and missed.
Although looking at this 54 penalties quickly, most of them were scored. Yeah. So they would have
just seeing 19 in a row is pretty crazy.
It is. I mean, it's also one of those things, and we were directly behind the goal where the penalties were being taken. And it is one of those things from the angle we had, sometimes with the TV angle that you get, because it's, you're not directly behind it, the goal looks smaller. You kind of have that angle where you don't. And when you're directly behind, the goal does, even with professional goalkeepers being, 6'4", 5'6", whatever they are, the goal still looks really big when you see someone take a penalty. So in your mind, you're then like, well, they should score. And then I think
and the one that missed too was actually a really nice
crossbar.
Yeah, it was a nice kick. He hit the underside of the crossbar and just missed it, hitting like the under and going in. It kind of hit under and just went straight down, like right in front of the goal line.
Yeah, but it's one of those things, I'd say after about the first, 12 went in, then you start to get into the mode of, you're not supposed to miss really, right? So maybe they'll just almost never miss, because it wasn't even, they weren't coming close to missing. I think of as you point out, the penalty that actually missed was, hit the crossbar, so it wasn't saved, and it was close to being an excellent penalty. Of the penalties that were taken in total, I think the goalkeepers only went the right way on 3 occasions. Yeah. So,
and the last Blackburn player to score was actually I thought the closest one getting saved, because he went the right way, and I think he might have maybe got like a piece of it almost. I think it got a piece of it, and then it went off the post and in.
Yeah, but for the most part, they were just sending the goalkeeper the right way, waiting for the goalkeeper to move. And so it was a very weird feeling, because at that moment in time, it just kind of feels never ending almost. And the tension both builds and dissipates in a strange way, because you're just sort of accepting of the fact that it's going forever. But yeah, it was a very good atmosphere, and good fun, nice day out. I hadn't been to the London Stadium before, so that was interesting. And Sam nearly became the leader of the Blackburn firm. For those unfamiliar, firm being the term that gets used for the hooligan groups. And we found ourselves interacting with the Blackburn, let's call them ruffians, if we want to, probably maybe not technically hooligans.
Let's just call them avid supporters.
As it turned out, the one we were talking to was not even a supporter. He was openly told us he was a Manchester United supporter, but he had just come down with some Blackburn supporting friends down to watch the match. and was looking for a fight. He was disappointed that he was unable to find one at this moment in time. Our conversation with him started because we were in one of the pubs that was closest to the ground before kickoff. And I think he and Sam kind of exchanged some glances, and I think Sam maybe looked at him for slightly too long, at which moment in time he inquired as to what was going on in our group, which we were then able to, I think once he realized that none of us were West Ham supporters, everything sort of, he was a nice guy at that moment in time. And we had a 10, 15-minute long conversation where he told us that he was amazed that 60 Blackburn supporters were able to walk into a West Ham pub and not have anything done to them, and that it was a sign of the times that it just showed how wimpy everyone was, that this was possible.
How terrible these times are, that people aren't getting jumped going to pubs.
Yeah, this was the second
what an
pub.
Indication of the state of this world.
Yeah, they'd gone to one pub first, not managed to find a fight there, so this was the second pub on their journey. And at that moment in time, Sam said, "Well, I know the pubs where all the sort of diehard West Ham supporters go to." And the guy said, "Okay, great. Where is it?"
Lead us there, Sam.
There's two of them. They're not that far away. I know exactly where they are. I go to them sometimes. And then the guy said, "Great, take us." And I think Sam had a moment of almost his mouth moving faster than his brain, where he was going to commit to the idea of taking these Blackburn supporters over there. And then fortunately we were able to say, look, it's only 15 minutes to kick off. We won't be going to any other bars before we go to the match. So, nothing came of it. The guys were very friendly, though. We wished them well. And we didn't see them in the stadium. But
so for all those wondering what happened to Sam, maybe this story gives you some indication of the downward spiral that Sam has been on since leaving the podcast.
Yeah, now he is it's Green Street hooligans all of a sudden for him. And he's not helped by the fact, right? I think in the initial situation as well, he's not helped by the fact that as someone with a shaved head, once you've spoken to him, he's definitely not giving off, like skinhead vibes. But in a pub around a football ground just before kickoff, he at least maybe passes the initial vibe check based on physical outward appearances. So,
oh dear.
Yeah, it was eventful. The guy's story, the man, he was probably, I would say, in his mid 60s. So, we had a little story time.
What? Oh yeah, that's a little curveball into the story.
Yeah, he was probably in his mid 60s. The other people with him, the other Blackburn supporters, were much younger. So he was clearly just more of the ringleader. But he had some interesting scars on his face and forehead, enough to know that, he wouldn't be the one you chose to mess with, I would say, but was very friendly. We had a good conversation with him about football in general. And just, he told us, he reminisced about the good old days where football grounds weren't built, back when old traditional grounds were built right in close residential areas. So you would be walking down narrow streets right as you got towards the ground, and you would just get jumped by a bunch of opposition supporters and have big fights in the middle of the road, and how everything had been ruined by them deciding to build grounds in more isolated parts of cities or even in suburbs where there's parking lots and things around them. So it's just big open spaces, so you can't get trapped in or anything. And just, just a sign of the times. Just life is not as good as the simple days in the 1970s and 80s when you go to a football match and might get killed.
Well, on that note, I was going to go back to the fact that you said before, watching the penalties, that you feel you almost shouldn't be able to miss. And that kind of was going to make sure everyone's aware that we're going to be doing a preview of the World Cup in lieu of the Euros debacle that England had in their penalty shootout finals against Italy, not being able to miss. But our next episode will be the World Cup preview. So we'll have potentially some special guests on, some not so special guests, but people that are begging to come on, and we're just going to give them their 2 minutes of fame so they can say they've done something with their life.
So no, that yes, in reference to that, the next episode we'll have friend of the podcast. All the stories have been told about him at different moments in time over the course of the podcast. He will be joining us to help us preview the World Cup itself. But yeah, then during the World Cup, we will have some football guests on. Obviously, we've had commentators and football players and journalists on in the past, and over that kind of month-long period, we'll have some. We'll be focusing on football a bit more heavily, right, during that period, as it's the the biggest sporting event in the world, basically. So we'll be dedicating a lot more time, and our guests will, I guess, be a bit more specialized and focused on the world of football for that period of time. So for everyone wanting more football content, they'll definitely be getting that. And I guess this is always a good opportunity to say, follow us on Instagram and Twitter and stuff, and you can get advanced, you can get some teasers about upcoming guests, and also sometimes a way to interact with our guests before they come on or after they're there. But yeah, just make sure to follow us there on social media. But it should be things kick off. I mean, it's a little bit, to me, a bit strange considering the World Cup kicks off 6 days from now, and it really doesn't feel that way. It feels like the combination of it being the first ever Winter World Cup, also with the location, I think just a general lack of excitement overall based on some of the kind of controversial elements associated with this World Cup. It means that
Eddie, just shut up and focus on football. Okay.
Yeah. We got the
take a message out of the book of FIFA
from FIFA.
Shut up and talk football.
No, it is true. We received the directive, and we will. But no, it is a bit weird. It definitely does not feel as if the World Cup is right around the corner, even though we've had all of the squads announced. And I also think the other weird thing, because of the timing of the World Cup itself, some countries are playing some friendlies in the build up to the World Cup, but England, for example, are not. So you'd normally have one or two matches pre-tournament that help you kind of get in the mood of like, okay, England are playing. Let's see how things are going. But this literally, England play next Monday, and that will be the start of things. So it's a little bit, that also makes it a bit strange.
Yeah, and I think we will have a lot of opportunity to talk about the rosters and who was picked, who was left out. Some notable people left out on a bunch of squads that have fans talking already. So I think it's something we can discuss. And obviously we're going to do most of the focus, I think, on England and, maybe a little bit on the US, because that's our two biggest markets, but we will cover we'll cover all the countries and nations competing.
Well, but Frank, as I told you the other day, we've had a bit of shift in
Canada.
And Canada is now our second, according to Canada is where our second biggest listenership is. And Canada, of course, are taking part in the World Cup. So we might be one of the few podcasts
we'll have to talk a lot about Alphonso Davies. I guess that's it.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I did look at the Canadian squad announcement just out of interest to see how many of them I, really recognized. And obviously he plays as a left back. For Bayern Munich. I mean, he's arguably the best left back in the world.
Fastest in the world.
I mean, I think he's arguably the best left back in the world, but listed as a forward for Canada. So that might be a sign of their strength.
Listed as the keeper for Canada.
Yeah, wherever they need him, they'll just plug and play. But yeah, he's that took me as a surprise, because it actually, when I first looked at their squad announcement, I looked first at defenders, did not see him mentioned, and I thought, oh no, is he injured or something and going to miss a World Cup, which is just such a shame, as there's a possibility this is the only time Canada make the World Cup in his career. So to be one of the world's best players and not have the chance to at least somewhat showcase.
Injured, right? Yeah.
But I was worried about that, and then no, he's there, just in a position I did not assume he'd be listed under.
Which I mean, well, we're getting into it now, but it must show you how talented he is, because I understand when people think of like professional athletes, they're great athletes, they can do whatever, but when you're a professional athlete, it's so specialized at that sport to be able to go from two extremely different positions, and probably like I would probably say he's hands down their best forward, right? Like, well, otherwise, why would you risk that? Why would you take him out of his natural position?
The other issue here, right? I'm assuming he's playing like wide on the left. The other interesting thing is just because of the way in which formations have changed right now, and the predominant way of playing is you no longer have two up front. You have one one central attacking player and two players out wide. Those players get listed as forwards, even though I guess in a more traditional sense you'd still think of them as midfielders. So like Saka gets listed as a forward for the England squad, but I wouldn't think of Saka as a forward. So that's the other thing that's a little bit confusing is basically, like you look at the England squad announcement and there's only a handful of midfielders. So it kind of is strange initially to kind of take that first look at, but it's the fact that like wide attacking players who previously would have just been wingers and classified as midfielders are now classified as actual forwards.
But not left
I'm not sure if I don't always agree. Yeah, I don't always agree with that because there are wide attacking players who are definitely forwards, and then there are wide attacking players who, like Mbappe plays out wide all the time. He's obviously a forward, but there are attacking midfielders who play out wide. Like Phil Foden to me is not a forward, but he is, a midfielder you're likely to find playing, out wide for both Manchester City and England. But there's to me, and I don't know how you fix that system, and it kind of doesn't matter. It's just semantics, but that's the only other thing that can be a little bit misleading sometimes when you look at these squad announcements. Final note on the World Cup topics, maybe before, and allow us to transition to American sports and what's happened in the NFL. But I don't know if you saw Ted Lasso. We've obviously spoken mostly extremely positive about Ted Lasso. We're both big fans of the show, even if season 2 maybe wasn't quite as good as season 1. I'm a bit worried that the success of the show is kind of going to the heads of everyone involved in the production, though. And I don't know if you've seen, but Ted Lasso has taken out billboards in each of the hometowns of all of the players and staff involved in the U.S. team for the World Cup, where they have written personalized notes to those players that are then posted on these billboards, wishing them good luck and explaining to them why they are their kind of hometown, hero, and that they will undoubtedly have a great World Cup. I find it a bit cringeworthy, to be perfectly honest. It's like the issue with it's taking the Ted Lasso universe where these characters manage to exist in a weird way that you could not in the real world, trying to bring it into reality, and I think missing the boat. A little bit strange, but nice, I guess, if you're a player and someone's put up a billboard wishing you good luck. But it also, I think it's confusing because based on the wording of a lot of the billboards, I've read through a few of them, it makes it seem like these players are all household names, that everyone in their hometown would know who they are. In some of these instances where these hometowns are fairly small, that probably is the case. But sometimes it's just like, you're the pride of Chicago. I'm going to guess most people in Chicago don't know who some of these people are, if you see what I mean. But aside from that, the sentiment behind it is nice, but it's a little too gimmicky.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're just probably capitalizing on while they can, because they're only going to do one more season. So maybe they just really want to make sure everyone in America is watching and catching up and going to tune in for that third and final season. It's the same as, they're in FIFA now, right? Which is kind of a strange thing that a fictional
another thing that annoyed me.
FIFA. Yeah, I know.
Well, I guess we can have the two worlds merge a bit. Maybe we kick things off in the NFL with talking about the NFL having its first ever game in Germany this weekend. Obviously, it's NFL games being played abroad is now very common. It's been a number of years that games have been played in London. There's several games played there a year. There are games played in Mexico City, including one coming up next week. So it's not unusual for a game not to be played in the U.S., but this was the first time the game was played in Munich at the Bayern Stadium. first time in Germany, and there's a commitment overall from the NFL that more games will be played there. I think the expectation is that 2 games will be played there next season. And whilst it hasn't been officially announced, it's been all but confirmed that one of those games will involve the Kansas City Chiefs. I remember last year on an episode we spoke about how different NFL teams had kind of snapped up media rights and marketing rights in different kind of regions. The Chiefs they're one of the teams with an interest in Germany, and outside of Munich airport, they have a billboard up that has Travis Kelce on it saying that coming soon. So it doesn't quite state what's going on. I know Travis Kelce on his podcast has also spoken about the fact that the Chiefs themselves expect to be playing a game abroad next season. Obviously, people have been raging about the atmosphere within the stadium, kind of, and just the overall experience. I think it's gone down really, really well. The game was pretty good, which I think is lucky. So many of these international games are duds and involving teams no one wants to see. The fact that this is probably 2 playoff teams playing the first game in the country kind of helps. And also Tom Brady rejuvenated. I mean, looked like a 38-year-old Tom Brady out there. Not a 45.
Maybe 40.
The only time he looked his age was when they inexplicably decided to shift him out wide and try and have him as a wide receiver, and he just slipped and looked like the guy at, like, you know, your uncle playing in a Thanksgiving bowl who is sort of forgotten that his feet don't move as fast as they used to, and is trying to keep up with, you know, his 13-year-old nephew. But aside from that,
it was like we have an intramural kickball team. One of the faculties, maybe mid-40s, but he was playing third base, and he thought he could kind of like run backwards and catch a ball down the third base line, and instead just did what you didn't think humans actually do and kind of just backpedaled and fell over right onto his back trying to catch it, that you think only happens in movies. And then when it happens in real life, you just sit there and laugh and don't even care if they're okay or not. But yes, that's exactly kind of what he looked like. He just kind of fell over and then tried to trip the guy, which, you know, I guess if you got to get him down, you got to get him down.
Yeah, no, I mean, in the end, it was probably a smart play by him in that moment, but that was the only blip. And overall, I mean, the Buccaneers dominated that game and somehow allowed the Seahawks to hang around. And then at the very end, it looked like they might actually blow it. Although then they kind of, that final possession, they had a very controlled drive to just kill the game and go from sort of 3.5 minutes left to game over pretty convincingly. But that was a much, much better Buccaneers performance. They solved a number of their problems. One, Tom Brady looked just tons better than he has done in recent weeks. They ran the ball effectively, which is something they've struggled with so much, which then opened up the possibility for them of play action, which is something they haven't had the threat of running the ball up until now. So play action hasn't worked. And play action is such a great way of giving Tom Brady that extra bit of time, and then also taking advantage of his ability to read a defense. So you're kind of solving a number of your problems through, you know, one simple fix. All of that made them look better, and their defense looked pretty good as a whole too. So it was easy to watch that game. The Seahawks, as we've discussed in recent weeks, they're legitimately pretty good. It was easy to watch that game and look at the Buccaneers and say they look like a playoff team again.
Yeah, it's definitely a step in the right direction. I will say, though, I don't watch them and think they could be the NFC's representative in the Super Bowl. I'm nowhere near that still. They did almost let the Seahawks come back and let the Seahawks right back into that game, which was kind of discouraging. You know, and there was a time where I kind of thought that the Bucs were going to blow it at the end. They didn't, but their offense looked better for sure. They looked more balanced on running the ball and passing the ball, not relying on one or the other. It's definitely a step in the right direction. I after watching the Saints and how terrible they played, and them, even though their record wouldn't indicate it, probably being the only other threat in that division to potentially win that division, I feel a lot more confident in the Bucs than I do the Saints. But I am not confident in the Bucs beating what I would consider the top tier of the NFC right now. And that's not to say they don't get there, right? Because I think that's what we're both saying is that they're going in the right direction, but you need to see more improvement on a week by week basis here to get back to that level that I think both of us expected they would be at.
Yeah, and Julio Jones coming back helped them, right? I just think Tom Brady needs, when you say he needs weapons, it's not that he needs superstars around him. He's proven that over the course of his career, but he needs people who can just do their job effectively. And for the majority of this season, I mean, we've discussed it on recent episodes with just the drops and stuff. He has not been helped by the people around him. And Julio Jones was at least able to come in and, execute in terms of what he was expected to do. And that kind of changes everything as well. So, yeah, I agree with you. I didn't look at that. There's some teams that there was a list of teams this weekend that some of them are changing my mind slightly. Some of them I already thought were threats to potentially win the Super Bowl. But there were a number of teams this weekend that impressed me enough that you kind of watched them and thought, I could see this team winning the Super Bowl if things went their way, if they produced the right performances at the right time. And this Buccaneers team, you still kind of looked at and went, maybe they'll beat someone in the playoffs, but I can't see them winning multiple games in a row against high quality opposition.
So I guess before we get to some of those teams, there's another team, obviously, that had a big win, and that would be the Green Bay Packers, who now sit at 4-6 after beating the Dallas Cowboys, mostly on a nice performance by Christian Watson, their second-round draft pick out of North Dakota State, who had, I think, 190 yards receiving or something like that, and 3 touchdowns. 120 yards, 3 touchdowns. So a huge performance by him. He's been hurt most of the season, so now he's back. There's some hope, I think, in Green Bay that maybe he'll be the receiver that can finally step up and kind of help this offense. But they're still 4-6. How much stock do you take into them beating the Cowboys in overtime and turning the season around and potentially backdooring into the playoffs?
They have some history of this, right? We've seen them been in trouble in a number of seasons, and then obviously famously the one year where Aaron Rodgers said they would run the table and they proceeded to do so. So you'd say they have a track record of kind of getting to mid-season, not looking great, and then just getting better, turning things on.
I mean, the issue is, we talked about it last week. The schedule is daunting,
it's rough,
to say the least.
They're not
Titans, Eagles, Bears, Rams, Dolphins, Vikings.
Yeah,
that is they're not very, very tough schedule.
They're not catching the Vikings to win the division. I think this weekend solidified that. Even though the Packers won a game that you would have expected them to lose, the fact that the Vikings picked up that win against Buffalo, which obviously I think we'll probably discuss after this, but they're not going to catch the Vikings. In terms of actually scraping into the playoffs, I think because of I'll say this, I'm going to reserve judgment. They play Thursday night against the Titans. And to me, that's the test in a sense, because this Titans team is good, but nothing special. And
they are the classic Titans team of the past 2-3 seasons.
Yeah. So if you have a flaw,
be a top 3 seed somehow,
Yeah, but if you have a flaw, they'll expose it, and they're well coached, and Vrabel doesn't mind
Vrabel.
being bored.
Not what? Vrabel.
Vrabel. That's what I said.
Vrabel?
No. No. Vrabel, if he, he has he's adaptable as a head coach and as a play caller, and he'll just do whatever, he'll just repeat the same play over and over again if that's the thing that's going to kill you. So this to me would be the interesting test. And part of me feels, I don't think that they didn't deserve to beat the Cowboys yesterday. I kind of don't know how they won it. They were almost dead and buried in that game. And then the Cowboys just allowed them to sneak their way back into it. Also, I have to say, I'm obviously not I'm not a Cowboys or a Packers fan. There were some questionable calls over the course of that game. I think almost all of them went against the Cowboys. And if you flipped even one of those, but certainly one or two of them, I think the outcome of the game itself would probably be different. So it was a lucky win. They definitely looked better than they have done in recent weeks. Aaron Rodgers looked somewhat, something like the Aaron Rodgers of old. Not quite there, but he at least also had some enthusiasm over the course of the game. He just looked so miserable most of the time. At least it looked like he kind of wanted to be out there. And managed to have that block where he then flexed on people, that was like an okay block. People made, as far as I was concerned, I think people make a way bigger deal of like quarterbacks just kind of standing in the way of a player running who maybe doesn't even know that a block is about to come, and the guy falling over and people treating it as if they just trucked someone, like it's not. But anyway, that's on a tangent. But I think they'll still miss the playoffs. I just think because the other equation you just have to do is there's some NFC teams ahead of them who I don't necessarily think are amazing, but just in order for them to close the gap, and you look at those other teams' schedules, I'm just expecting some of those other teams to get to 10 or 11 wins without being anything spectacular, and I just can't see the Packers catching them.
So then the last one I want to bring up, and I want to know whether you have, I know you probably already have for 4 weeks ago, but do you officially put the nail in the coffin of the Los Angeles Rams making the playoffs this year? They are now 3-6, now having lost to the Arizona Cardinals in another abysmal performance where granted, yes, they didn't have Stafford, but the Cardinals did not have Murray either, and at a point had Trace McSorley in, who I didn't even know was still in the NFL, let alone, I guess a third stringer, so maybe he barely is on the fringe. But regardless, that was a terrible performance they put in and got dismantled by Colt McCoy. Is the nail officially in the coffin? They are only technically 2 games back of the last wild card, which right now would be the San Francisco 49ers at 5-4. And they are sitting at 3-6, but 2 games out, still a tough schedule. Are we done with the Rams? Do we see them any chance?
Oh, yeah, as you pointed out, I was done with them a couple of weeks ago, and I'm done with them. And Cooper Kupp's injured now, right? So it's unclear as to
thanks to his quarterback just putting him on a stretcher, basically.
Yeah, but it's unclear as to whether or not he'll miss time. But you have to imagine if you're the Rams, you shut him down if there's any risk of long-term damage. You're not going to rush Cooper Kupp back for a season in which you're almost certainly going to miss the playoffs. So, yeah, I think the other reason why they're, I not being Niners Nation, I think the Niners are going to continue to win. The majority of their remaining games. The Seahawks are feisty enough that they are also going to pick up wins. It's just difficult to see what the path to the playoffs looks like for the Rams. Again, even if they fix some of their own problems, which I don't think they will, but they're almost in a run the table situation, and there's just no way they're good enough to do that.
Yeah. They have a slightly easier schedule remaining than the Packers do. But at this point, I would put the Packers having a better chance to make it above the Rams. I don't think either of them has a great chance, but I think I could see the Packers making the playoffs. At this point, I cannot see the Rams making the playoffs.
Well, they've got odds on that, Frank. So we can look. If you look at the Packers odds of making the playoffs is a little over 3-1. The odds on the Rams making the playoffs is 8-1. So the bookmakers agree with you in terms of the probability of each one of them being in there.
So now I'm going to shift gears to what I'm calling my hot take, which I think you are going to agree with me about what this is. So as the early games wound down and we got to the night games and you had your halftime shows and your pre-Sunday night football shows, all the talk in the NFL was about the hands down greatest game of the year so far in the Vikings and the Buffalo Bills. and how it was the most amazing game many people had ever seen. So good, greatest game ever. My hot take is it was not that great of a game. And my reasoning why it wasn't that great of a game is because terrible plays don't make great games. I understand close scores and last second scores and last minute scores make great games, but I don't think they make great games at the cost of terrible decision making, bad throws, bad plays, and stupid play calls.
I agree with you. I didn't think it was. I watched the whole game. I didn't think it was. I watched the whole game. I didn't think it was that good of a game. And yeah, it got exciting towards the end. It wasn't exciting for most of it because for the vast majority of the game, the Bills were just in total control,
cruise control.
And then just very quickly things. Look, the Justin Jefferson catch is probably is probably the best catch I've ever seen.
Which one? There was two.
The 4th and 18 or whatever it was. 4th and 20.
Now I'll argue. I think while he made a nice play, that is an atrocious play by a defender because we talk about it every day. It's 4th and 18.
You bat it down.
You don't need to intercept the ball. If you had just batted the ball, he doesn't even come close to catching it. He doesn't even come close. He could have easily batted it, but instead he tries to make an interception, which would have been worse for his team.
Yeah.
And instead lets Jefferson make an amazing, beautiful catch, but should never have been in that scenario to be able to make that catch because if you are understanding 100%. The game, you knock it.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's why, to me, this isn't the greatest game because of mistakes like that.
I don't even think to build further on your point. I think he not only didn't, he could have easily stopped the catch from being made if he hadn't gone for the interception. I actually think he helped Justin Jefferson make the catch in the way that he went for the interception. Like he helped him maintain possession of the ball, where if he had just at any moment in time just given up on not even try and actively bat it, if he just kind of pulled his hands away and said, I'm not going to be catching this, Justin Jefferson just drops it as he goes to the ground. But still the body control and stuff involved in it, it's just incredible to be able to hold on to it in the way in which he did. But yeah, I know, like, you should be telling your players before that play, we don't need an interception. Just break it up. Like, that's all you need to be doing. Just break it up. We're getting the ball back deep in their half. We're going to be up. We're going to be in a position to put ourselves up multiple scores without moving the ball at all when we get it back. You don't need to be a hero. You don't need to have a sports center play here. Just break it up and we'll be fine. And so, yeah, I agree with you there. And I also, it even annoyed me. It's kind of the weird thing. You had the Vikings players after you had the touchdown, the go-ahead touchdown that they had after the fumbled snap, and the final one after the Bills had stopped them on the goal line. You had the Vikings defense celebrating like they had made some extraordinary play. Like what a heroic, stand from us to be able to get that touchdown. Like you did nothing. It's a bad snap. Allen fumbles it, and the right guys fell on it in your respect, but it wasn't as if it was kind of defensive quality that resulted in a defensive touchdown. It was simply poor execution on the part of the Bills, which is surprising because Allen is usually so good at, the like QB sneaks and all of those associated things. It's kind of a surprising mistake from them. But yeah, I didn't think it was a close game at the end, but it wasn't a good game. Even in the final plays, right? I mean, the Vikings failing to get the go-ahead touchdown from the situation that they were in initially was poor execution. The Bills then
first and goal from the one almost.
Yeah, the Bills then
goal, isn't it?
The Bills then messing up the snap, not great. The Vikings then allowing the Bills to kind of march down the field pretty comfortably. Like, not great defense, like nice execution from the Bills, and obviously had the controversial non-reviewed catch at one moment in time of the course of that drive. And then that Josh Allen interception at the end. Like, it's hard to even work out what he was trying to do. I mean? Like, there's moments in a situation where you did not need to be doing that at all. It's difficult to work out exactly what was going through his brain.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Both of his interceptions were very, very bad interceptions. Now, maybe you excuse the first one that was on 4th and 2 because he was just trying to force something because it was 4th down and the ball was going to get turned over anyway. As it turns out, they returned it back for a decent amount, so it did cost them a little more than him just sitting on it or something like that, or trying to make a run for it instead of giving them the ball with decent field position. They get it at the 1 or 2 yard line. But that was a terrible throw. And then he tops that by making what could be one of his worst throws he's made in his professional career. I don't think there was 3 Vikings players in the area and no Bills players. I mean, the closest Bills player was like 5 yards in the other direction.
Yeah. And didn't need to. Already in field goal range.
It was second down. Second and 10 in field goal range.
Already in field goal range. So with the clock situation, they were basically either getting the tie or they were winning. Like they were in a situation where even if they kicked the field goal, time was pretty much going to be expiring. They could have made sure the time was going to be expiring when they kicked that field goal, but in the very least, the Vikings were going to be getting the ball back with not a lot of time left on the clock. So you're probably going to have 2 teams accept at that moment in time that it was going to be the tie, which from the Bills' perspective would have actually been okay. They're now in a fight to win their division, a fight for playoff seedings, a fight for buys. The tie, come the end of the season, we could look back on that and think, if they just got that tie against the Vikings, this could be the difference between home field advantage. This could be the difference between playing in the wild card weekend or not. Like there's a lot of implications of that bad throw. But overall, I mean, his decision making, his interceptions over the last 2 weeks, same against the Jets. Yeah, we spoke about it in the last episode. Yes, the Jets were getting pressure on him, but the actual interceptions he threw were just atrocious. And this is another instance. Like, yeah, maybe the Vikings defense is okay, but the moments in which he was making mistakes was not because of something they were doing.
Yeah, and maybe we'll save this for a future episode, but with the game on the line so far, I think in recent memories, the stat is the Bills are 2-9 in close games in the past 2 seasons, and maybe it's not so much the Bills. Maybe it's a little bit of both.
We spoke about it going into that Chiefs game, right? How the one thing the Bills would have wanted was a close game to build their confidence, because the knock on them is that they're not good in close games. They're great. They can blow a team out by 30 points, but if things get close, that they just seem to, tighten up a bit. This is another example of it. I think they're definitely in a category now of where I don't trust them. Like Josh Allen is a very good quarterback. That offense is very good. I didn't trust them when they got the ball back after the Vikings scored, when they got the ball back with, whatever it was, 44 seconds left. I didn't expect them to get into field goal range. They did. Overtime, I didn't trust them. They got into field goal range again, and then he throws the bad interception. I just think that's the difference is, when you look at Mahomes, you just have total confidence in the fact in those same situations. And look, Mahomes makes dumb mistakes sometimes too, but for the most part, you just think, of course they're going to do this. He's just going to chip his way down. They're going to get the field goal. It is what it is. Josh Allen, last season, it looked like, and the start of this one, it looked like he'd fixed a lot of the problems that he'd had early in his career, where the big criticism on him was that he made too many mistakes and, kind of wasn't clutch. And in recent weeks, it looks like you're seeing the Josh Allen that we saw 2 or 3 seasons ago, and not the Josh Allen that we've seen for the last 18 months.
Yeah, and I think another team that we'll probably get into it a little bit is the Niners, who are 2-0 since getting Christian McCaffrey. And
right? They lost to the Chiefs he's played 3 games, but they traded for him.
That's right. Sorry,
3 days before that Chiefs game. So if you want to say in like full weeks with Christian McCaffrey, they're 2-0.
Yes. And before we discuss whether
final note just on that Bills game though, that's 3 games in a row now where the Bills do not have a second half touchdown. That's a statistic that's a little bit concerning for.
Yep. They're like the anti-New York Giants.
Yeah.
But before we mention that, I guess, with the Niners next week going to Mexico City, and we discussed the Buccaneers going to Germany, I was in Anaheim this week at a conference, and I had like a 40-minute Uber ride with someone who had just driven a major executive for the Disney like promotion side. And he said, the guy was really nice and talked to him the entire time. And he was asking about all like the fast passes they have now and how they're getting rid of some of them and they have these new ones. And the person said that Disney is unveiling, I think this year or next year, a new plan. And it's $90,000 per person. And what this gets you is a 40-day trip around the world to all the Disney spots in all the different countries. You get airfare, hotel stay, and you get special private tours with what they call a plaid. It's a person who wears a plaid shirt that takes you around. And it's all in a 40-day period. You basically travel to all the different Disney parks for $90,000. He said they already have a wait list over 5 times the amount of people that they have openings for the first year. And they haven't even officially released it yet.
That doesn't surprise me, right? People lose their minds for Disney. I'm trying to work out whether or not that represents any form of value for money. And I guess it does, just because Disney is so expensive.
No way.
Well, no, just because Disney is so expensive, right? So if you want to do that, like what would be the cost if you just tried to plan out, I want to go to every Disney site, like, and spend a week there? You're probably going to spend that anyway. I guess the question would be, is that including food and drinks or anything, or no? So you're spending let's say $120,000.
So there are 12 total parks. There's California, Florida, Tokyo, Paris, Hong Kong, and China, with a few like in some of those areas.
See, I think
you're not really traveling. It's not as if you're going to that many different places. I mean, you're literally doing California, Florida, Tokyo, Paris, Hong Kong, and China. Like, that's not that many places you're hitting.
No, but I think you would spend $90,000 if you wanted to do that anyway. You'd spend more than that. Flights, accommodation, passes to the parks. I think you would spend $90,000 doing that. I mean, for example, I know that to stay in the Marvel Hotel, which they've just opened up in Paris in Disneyland, I know that a 4-night stay is $1,200, and I think you had to do a minimum of a 3-night stay to even get into it. Now, you're not staying in that as part of this, but it's a representative of just how expensive these parks are now. So, saying value for money, in the sense, if you wanted to have some, wanted to go to every Disney park out there, I don't think that interests either you or I. Yes, for a lot less than $90,000, you could travel to all of those cities and have an incredible experience.
A much more incredible experience than going to a Disney park. And the other thing too you have to consider is you're probably at least traveling as a couple. So you're actually looking at $180,000.
Well, I wouldn't guarantee that all the weirdos who are traveling to different Disney sites are necessarily doing it with other people. So I'm not
just mean, Eddie.
I'm just saying, I'm not confident in that. I do think there are a lot of people who will do that, who then have kids and things. So there's going to be some people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars.
$250,000.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But I mean, absolutely mind-boggling.
If you've got the money, I guess, and 40 days spare, that's the other issue.
Yeah. Maybe it's not 40 together, but he said 40 days around the world. So I'm getting this secondhand from the person who talked to the
real lesson out of this is don't tell your Uber driver details, because then the Uber driver tells the next person, and next thing you know, it's on a podcast.
Now it's on a worldwide podcast.
Yeah.
But those people, I think maybe you need to think about what you're spending your money on a little bit. I'm not trying to be mean to certain people here, but that's a lot of money to spend on an amusement park made up of fictional animation characters.
Again, here's the thing, right? If you really have that money, I still think there's better ways. Obviously, the world is in need of a lot more, but if you have the disposable income necessary, where that's just not really something you have to think about. I think the scary thing would be with just the obsession people have over Disney. There's going to be people like mortgaging their houses to do this. That's the terrifying element. If you're earning, $40 million a year, and you and your family really want to do this strange Disney trip, kind of good for you. Like, it doesn't really matter, right? But yeah, there's going to be plenty of people out there with not all that much money who are going to be spending $90,000 because they have to have every possible Disney experience.
Yeah. And I have some more stories along the way, but we can get back to football.
Okay, they're just going to get
There's
thrown,
just a few more, yeah.
Thrown in every once in a while we talk football. Yeah, I thought
let's go back to the Niners.
I thought it was an okay performance from the Niners. I don't think it was anything particularly special. That Chargers team has been so devastated by injuries, and continued to be over the course of that game, particularly with their defensive line, which just kind of plays right into the hands of the Niners, right? They were just able to run the ball more and more effectively as the game wore on, where I don't look at that and think that was a statement win in any way. But at the same time, early on, I got a little bit worried that it was going to be a pretty important loss. So they at least managed to turn things around. And they look good. They do the things as Kittle gets healthier and Debo is back. That offense, I think that offense should look genuinely pretty scary to other teams in the NFC. And
if you just didn't look at the quarterback.
But if that team, in a sense, if that offense works well, you don't need to be looking at the quarterback.
You always need to be looking at the quarterback.
But it's kind of
Listen, Josh Allen just had to collect the ball from a center, and that game was over, and he still messed it up. So
yeah, it's true. But no, I think it's encouraging. It didn't. That game itself did not move the needle for me in any way. It was just a checking off the list of job done. Like, the Chargers are okay, have a ton of injuries. Yeah, Herbert is still good, but if you want to be seriously considered as potential Super Bowl contenders, which obviously putting yourselves as potential contenders is a bit of a weird category, but if that's the group that you want to be in, then you need to be able to beat this version of the Chargers team.
Any other games you think worth mentioning?
The Dolphins looked pretty good. I guess it's worth saying that. This Browns team, it's just so hard to read into them. They're good one week, terrible the next. So it's hard to know exactly what any win or loss to them really means. But the Dolphins look good. I think as the time goes by, they look more and more like they could be difficult to beat in the playoffs. And if you're the Bills, again, it should be a little bit concerning that you have them in the division, and there's no reason to think that they're going to hand you the division by losing games. So,
the Bills are third in the division right now.
Yeah, I kind of said it in jest. I think it was last episode that it's not inconceivable that the Bills could miss the playoffs. And I don't expect them to, but they could miss the playoffs. Like, there is a scenario here in which they slip up one or two more times and they could just miss out.
Do you want to hear the crazy scenario right now? If the playoffs were to start next week, every team in the AFC East makes the playoffs.
which I think could happen by the end of the season. The big question mark there is the Patriots more than anything, I guess. But yeah, I think it's more likely that 4 teams make it than only 2. If you see what I mean.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you have the Chargers are right, same record, but with the tiebreakers as the Patriots. You have the Chargers, the Bengals are both 5-4 as well. So it's very tight. But if it ended today, the Patriots would be the last one in the playoffs. So yeah.
And other games that caught my eye, the Giants got the job done. Again, not spectacular.
Did not look great.
Nothing to make you think they'd be a difficult out in the playoffs, but they got to win. They're going to get enough wins probably to sneak in. But then, I think there will be a lot of teams who would look at the Giants and think we'd love to be playing them in January. But
yeah, I mean the issue. I had my post game debrief with my dad as we do after every game, and he is of the mindset, hey, a win's a win, right? Like don't ever get mad about a win. But I think that's fine if come playoffs you say, hey, we made the playoffs. I don't care if we get blown out this first game. They did great. I was happy that they won this many games. But if you actually want them, I think, or expect them to be contenders to make a run in the playoffs, you have to be winning games better against the Houston Texans than the performance they put in. I mean, if they play any team that is a decent team, they lose that game. They were awful on special teams. What bothers me is you should treat good teams, treat games like that as an opportunity to practice and to get better, whereas the Giants are taking that as a chance to win a game. And that's the difference between the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Giants. The Giants, when the third quarter happened and they were winning, their mentality was, we are just going to literally give the ball to Barkley every freaking play until this clock runs out. Daniel Jones had 4 throws, I think, in the second half. You're not improving your team by doing that. You're beating a 1-6 team. That's not going to get you anywhere in the playoffs. You need to start practicing throwing the ball, running the routes that you want to run, doing a 2-minute offense when you have 2 minutes left in the first half or something like, and that's what bothers me is you're not going to go into the playoffs and beat the Eagles by saying, hey, we're up 7-0 in the first quarter. Let's try and run out the clock now for the next 3 quarters. It's not going to work. And that's kind of what is disappointing about the Giants.
Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. But, they're kind of buying their ticket to the dance, right? And as we've seen, if any team should know how invaluable they can be, it's the New York Giants. They've shown in this century twice that the first step towards winning the Super Bowl is making sure you're in the playoffs. And from there on, crazy things can happen. So I don't think they're going to be, I think they'll be done in the first round of the playoffs, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, like you look at a team like the Dolphins, right? At 7-3, and they don't stop pushing the throttle against the Browns. I mean, every series they got, you think they were just going to start running the clock down, and Tua's throwing 60-yard bombs to Waddle on 1st and 10. Like they're going to go for it, and I respect that, and that's what's going to make them better when the time comes down the road.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I guess
think a very difficult team. I am becoming more and more impressed with the Dolphins. I mean, their offense is sizzling.
No, their offense is really good. I still think Tua just has a couple throws a game that look really, really terrible. And so you're just kind of waiting for the mistake to happen there in some respects. But no, I mean, they'll be difficult to beat. And I guess we kind of focused there a bit, going back to that Bills-Vikings game, maybe as my final note from this weekend's games. We focused very much there on the Bills blowing it. I guess some credit has to be given to the Vikings, even though I don't think that was a spectacular performance. And when they look good, Kirk Cousins makes some great throws at times. He also randomly just trips over his own center at other times. But, there's, as time goes on over the course of this season, you kind of have to take them a little bit more seriously. I still don't, as good as their record is, and the fact that they're definitely going to be in the playoffs at this point, they may well even be getting a bye. I still just look at them and think, yeah, someone's going to beat them in the playoffs. And we spoke about it, right? I said I would be happy for the Niners to be playing the Vikings in round one. I think I'd still be happy for them to play them in round one or round two. But that was, they proved me at least slightly wrong in that game, because when the Bills were up by 17, I felt like this is everything I ever believed in when it came to the Vikings. Like, this is what it looks like when they come up against sort of playoff caliber opponents, and they managed to put a comeback together. So then, moving on from the NFL, do you want to dive into some more of your travel stories?
All right. So one of the other ones that I thought would be worth mentioning was in another Uber. Apparently in California, you have to Uber everywhere because their public transit is atrocious. The Uber I had was a 20-minute Uber where the person had a kind of similar to like a podcast. Like, he had a YouTube channel on where it was like, I think it was a YouTube podcast channel basically, and they were talking about business investments and real estate investments and this and that, and they had like people calling in and they were answering their calls and this and that, and so I was kind of listening to it, but then they went on their own little tangent on their podcast or whatever we would call it, where they said that they were being called, someone had called them their root beer float, and that it was their indulgence to listen to their podcast like they do like a good root beer float. And then they argued who is the root beer in the scenario and who is the ice cream in the scenario that makes up the root beer float of their podcast. And that got me to thinking, Eddie, if we were a root beer float, who's the ice cream and who's the root beer?
I think
there's only one answer.
I think you're the ice cream.
Thank you. You're the root beer because you're just bitter at heart.
I wasn't. Right. I wasn't thinking about it in that respect, but I'll still take
You're
it. You're
bitter and bubbly.
I would say, yeah, it's pretty clear in this dynamic that you'd be the ice cream.
Yeah, you're quite the tonic.
And Sam is I don't know what he is at this point. I was going to say
the straw,
the melted ice, but you wouldn't even have ice in your root beer float, would you? So no. Straw would make him too useful and functional.
He's the.
I
know what Sam is. Oh no, that's a milkshake. Damn. If we were a milkshake, he's like that extra little part they give you when they can't pour it all in, and they give you like the cup that has like 15% left of the milkshake. He's like the cup that just holds the extra.
He's the can the root beer came in, and he's now discarded and been sent for recycling.
He's been discarded to hooliganism.
Exactly. Yeah.
Currently being used to bash someone's head in.
Yeah, maybe he'll come back as a baseball bat and can be more useful to his new fans.
Yeah. So the other one I had that kind of got me thinking was I then was at a brewery, and there was two bathrooms, a men and a women's bathroom, and there was quite a line for both. There was only one door. And the men's bathroom, like someone would go in and then lock the door. It wasn't like, like multiple things, people were just going in. It was like a locked bathroom situation. So I went in, and then I noticed that there was in this bathroom a sink, and then a urinal, and then a toilet, but no stall separating the urinal and the toilet. In this scenario, if there's a line, do you turn behind you and go to the next guy in line and say, hey, there's a second toilet in here if you want to go while I go in the urinal?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not, but I don't know. Maybe. I guess
What
it
if
would
it's like a
depend.
friend? What if it's like a friend?
A friend, 100%, yes. A
Okay.
stranger, maybe not, just because people get really weird when you try and interact with them in the bathroom, like
Yes.
particularly some guys get like very, like they assume that you're then hitting on them. It's like a very weird dynamic, right, amongst men in the bathroom. Like any form of interaction and communication is taken with a great degree of skepticism. So I don't, I would say I probably don't. A friend, 100% I do, yeah.
Okay. It's a very weird bathroom situation when they have that. Like, I don't know why they decide to put the urinal in if it's a single user bathroom. Like, are men that I don't are they that bad at peeing that they need the urinal? They can't pee into a toilet. Is that why you do that? Or do men get so excited when they go in that they want them to be excited to use their bathroom? Like, I don't get why you would do that. Why put a urinal into a single bathroom?
Yeah, it's a little strange, but I'm I'm sure there's some guys who much prefer it. To me, I have no preference or issues with either, but I'm sure that there are listeners out there who much prefer the urinal experience. Or
That's so weird to say.
I'll say
I
from
used
my
both. I went back and forth.
simultaneously, yeah. Um, I will say that from my travel was for the most part pretty uneventful, which was nice, as I often have hiccups whenever I've got any form of sort of decently long travel. I
Not
did go
actual
in,
hiccups. It's not
yeah,
like a physiological mechanism. You got
I
hiccups.
did go into the lounge on my way to London. I was in the lounge waiting for my train, and
Okay. For the Eurostar.
for the Eurostar, yeah, and not a great lounge, not really worth it, but you know,
Free drinks.
free drinks. That's all it has to offer. No food. It's got chips and snacks and stuff, and like nothing of any quality. So it's just free drinks. Like that's it, and a guaranteed place to sit, which you might not be able to get otherwise. But annoying the number of people who are willing to have like one thing that I've noticed post pandemic, and just with the how used to like Zoom calls and stuff people are with meetings,
I know what you're
pe-
gonna say, and I hate it.
people's openness to just have like a meeting, just like sat around people and just be loudly talking on a meeting. Like I just don't get it. I don't get it from you have to know how annoying it is for everyone else around you. And also like you definitely have every other person on your call who can hear background noises and stuff. Like it's just off putting. Like I can definitely get joining a meeting where you're not going to speak much, like, hey, I'll join in on this meeting. I'll be in an airport lounge or whatever. I won't talk, but I'll listen to whatever's going on if this is information I probably need. Otherwise, just reschedule your meeting. Like, know where you're going to be. But the wilder thing that I saw take place, no food, as I said, served in the lounge, but these two well dressed women, probably late 20s, early 30s, came in and sat near me, and then called over one of the sort of attendants that's within the lounge. You come and take away your drinks or get anything if you need anything specific. Gave them Burger King, gave them some Whoppers that they had bought, obviously elsewhere in the station, and then asked if they could go and heat them up for them. So this woman went away, reheat reheated their Whoppers, and then brought them back to them on plates, and then they ate their Whoppers in the lounge. It was a very weird exchange.
That's really weird. I mean, yeah, that's just weird.
And on a fast food note, we obviously had a while where we were pretty heavily focused on the chicken sandwich wars in the U.S. Most of which I've not been able to test out, having been in Europe, where a lot of those franchises simply do not exist. But near the West Ham Stadium, there is a Popeyes, and
Did you
I
try
went
it?
I went and got a Popeyes chicken sandwich before the game. It was good. I also walked in and did not. I saw the like touch screens that you have to order from, saw one of them was like, had one guy standing in front of it. So I just walked behind him. He just finished his order. I put my order in, paid. And at that moment in time, I turned around and realized that there was a line of maybe 120 people.
Everyone.
That I had just not noticed. Like I had just walked in and gone, oh, there's the touchscreens, and just and there were just people staring at me. But at that moment, and I apologized and said, well, I'm sorry, but also like I've paid for my order now, right? Like there's no way for me to undo this unless one of you wants to have exactly what I just ordered. I can't fix this problem. Like,
and I couldn't imagine one of your friends who was in attendance if he were in that line.
And I'm stabbed. I'm stabbed.
You would have gotten thrown in front of a bus or something.
Yeah, that would have been sufficient cause for murder, and he would have gone to trial and sort of expected to be let off.
Oh,
but I did
God.
feel
you have to
bad.
feel so bad, right? Because it's like a genuine mistake, and you can't undo it because you already paid. Like you can't like be like, oh, I'll take this back now. You know, like, oh, that is. And
bad. You can tell that I don't know what percentage of them. I'm guessing at least a lot of them saw me not even look at the line when I came in, but I'm sure there were plenty of them that just thought I'd done it on purpose and got away with it. But it wasn't until I turned around. And the only reason I then really started to realize is like they had a section where they kind of corralled you, which is where you waited for your order to be, finished. But that was like
that. You just grabbed the first chicken sandwich that came out. It wasn't even your name.
Ate it. No, that wasn't mine. Wait for the next one. But no, it was good. And look, that saved me probably 45 minutes. So that also significantly increased my Popeyes experience.
That is so funny. That's crazy. I also thought what you were going to mention too is I think post-pandemic, I've seen more of this, the lack of headphones in public places. So being in an airport, obviously you're surrounded by people, and there was people just watching YouTube on their phone, blasting it. I don't understand. And
I'm going to add an extra level to that. And I'm going to throw out something that I'm sure is going to get a major backlash. I say this as a non-parent. Just because it's a kid doesn't mean you can give your kid your phone or your iPad or whatever and let them watch their show and not have it be fucking annoying for everyone else around you. And I don't have to tolerate it just because you're too much of a lazy parent to engage with your child while you're waiting for your train or your plane. That's not my fucking fault.
I love this hot take. This is a hot take you will die on.
And I'm sure as a non-parent, there's going to be a lot of people out there telling me I'm wrong, that I don't know how difficult it is, whatever. I get you. But you don't get carte blanche to just have your kid be an asshole because they're under the age of 12. Like that does not mean that you can. That I can't
wait. Can we gotta stick a pin in this for when Ollie comes on?
No. I mean, I don't know if he's guilty of it. If it is, I'll call him out, and I'll say my own sister is guilty of this. I went to a restaurant with her while I was in London, and you've got a child, like a 5-year-old kid struggling to, with feeling like a lack of attention while you're all eating, just gets handed a phone, and then on goes a YouTube video, and everyone else in the fucking restaurant has their brunch ruined because it's not like kids listen to
I love how angry this makes you. Oh God. Just for listeners for reference, Eddie yells at his plants if they grow too loudly. This is how bitter. This is why he's the root beer in the float.
But it's not like every kids program is annoying, right? The noises and everything. So it's not as if these kids are then interacting with sort of things that don't disrupt your experience. I felt embarrassed to be like sitting at the table. I was like, these people are going to look at me and think I'm the asshole parent who thinks this is okay. And I want to smash the phone just as much as you do. But yeah, I mean, it's, as I said, And again, there's moments. I'm not saying I'm very tolerant of the fact that kids make noises and all sorts of things. I'm not going that far, but just this acceptance that we have now that your kid can just watch a YouTube video at any moment in time, and we've all got to listen to it. It's not good.
I'm surprised you even allow children out before the age of 14.
Don't get me wrong. No kid like planes, no kid train carriages, whatever. I'm all in favor of it.
Unless they get first class like you did when you were a child. Then it's okay.
I behave myself.
Okay.
So I behave myself. I mean, look, it was a different time too. I mean, we didn't have toys like that. I mean, I had a Game Boy as a kid, but I'll put it this way: there was no way in hell my parents were going to let me play my Game Boy in public with the sound on. Like that was
play your headphones for Game Boy.
Yeah, but even if you didn't have headphones, it was like play your Game Boy, but you're turning the sound off. Like it's not. You're gonna have to learn to. Yeah, you can play with your toy, but like you're in public now. This is adapt to these surroundings. Whereas it feels like we've just accepted this world where it's like anyone under the age of 10 just can do whatever they want.
Eddie, speaking, I'm gonna veer you off this topic before you get every person in the world angry at you for hating anyone with children.
If you're a parent and you disagree with me, you can come and tell us. Follow the Big Chill Podcast on Instagram or Twitter, and you can go and tell me what an idiot I'm there.
Give us 5 stars, and if you give us 5, that means we understand you don't agree with Eddie. 5 stars means you don't agree.
I will say something we don't ask listeners to do regularly. If you do like the podcast, or if you do listen regularly, if you could just leave us a review or a rating, it does help us with our podcast rankings. It helps us to get new listeners. Not something that we ask you to do very often, but if you do listen, whatever podcast app you're using probably has some kind of rating or review system. And if you can just leave it, it helps us out. All right, you can move it. I have to, especially if I've really annoyed you with my parent rant, then maybe wait till the next episode to leave the review.
Maybe. You talked about Game Boy, and that, reminds me of nostalgia. And one of my favorite movies growing up, or franchise movies, was obviously The Mighty Ducks. And we covered season 1 quite extensively to our detriment.
Yeah. You think my parent rant annoyed listeners? The multiple episodes we spent on the Mighty Ducks annoyed them even more.
Season 2 is just more inconceivable with how ridiculous some of the things are. But I just have to mention this because it was just mind-boggling to me that they thought this, whoever wrote this into the season, they thought this made sense. So they're having, basically, I'm not going to give much of a premise, but season 2, they're at a hockey summer camp, and it's in LA. And long story short, pretty much the team sucks, and they get to go there somehow. And then they have a tournament at this camp, and the same players get drafted onto the same team. So they're like still the Mighty Ducks now in this camp, and they're terrible, and they get blown out every game. She calls in a favor, and they get to go to the Honda Center where the Mighty Ducks, the real Anaheim Ducks, play and practice. And she gets them in there thinking like, this is good, what's going to turn them around. She gets a private tour of the arena. And this is what's mind-boggling. This is what they have in the arena. He's showing them like the locker rooms and like the front office and this and that. And then he takes them into a room that is the room before they go out onto the ice. And in this room of the professional Anaheim Ducks is pictures of all the original Mighty Ducks, the kids from the first season, from the first movie, and then when they played in the Junior Goodwill Games, not the Olympics, not the Junior Olympics, the Junior Goodwill Games. This room just has pictures of all of them surrounding it. And then in the middle of this room is a gold puck that is standing on a platform, like sitting on a platform. And he then goes on to say that indeed, yes, you are correct in what you thought this puck is. This is the actual puck that he shot the knuckle puck in disguised as a goalie against Team Iceland in the finals to win them the Junior Goodwill Games. They have now made it a gold puck, and all of the professional hockey players walk by this puck and touch it for good luck because that's just how special of a puck this is. Who on earth thought that could actually happen in any way, shape, or form in professional sports?
I mean, I guess the counter to what you're saying is this the most unrealistic thing you've seen within the Mighty Ducks franchises? But yeah, I mean that's insane. Now here's the worst part. How would you react if it then turns out that really does exist in in the Anaheim Ducks stadium?
I mean, it's I don't know who would ever have thought that. Like this, it'd be really cool. Let's do this. Professional hockey players are going to touch a puck from a random international competition of 14-year-olds that was won by Team USA that happened to be a bunch of Minnesota Duck players. That's the other thing too, is they're from Minnesota, these players. They're the Minnesota Ducks.
Yeah, it's not a local team. Like it's not a story that really captured the hearts of the local community. Yeah,
to think that a professional team has some some significance to this puck that they've gold plated it and put it on a pedestal. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in a sports movie.
So are you out on the TV show then?
Oh no way! I'm full in.
So not dumbest thing you've ever seen, but you're still gonna watch.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I will not be joining you, and I can now reassure listeners that will be the final time that we discuss the Mighty Ducks.
And it's sad because they had professional hockey players on it. They had the Zegras, he's the cover of NHL, the hockey game, and he was actually in the episode. And I mean, they're getting people on it, and it's awful.
Well, there you go. That's the review.
Sad downfall.
All right. I mean, I guess the other story from the news that we haven't mentioned, and we probably should have when we were discussing the Premier League, was the Cristiano Ronaldo situation and the interview that he had that came out with Piers Morgan. I guess we can save that maybe as the first topic that we'll have then as part of the World Cup discussion, just an overall little kind of icebreaker with Ollie as we talk about the world of football. We can ease into things with the Ronaldo situation.
Our opening with Ollie.
Exactly.
Keep the alliteration.
Yeah, we do know how you love it. And how you love discussing openings with Ollie, so it works well.
Only Sam we're still around.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss?
No, I think that about wraps it up. I'm getting very excited for World Cup. I already have my calendar marked down for about 3 or 4 matches that I've canceled all meetings for, because I know once I start watching at 11 a.m., it probably won't die down until about 11 p.m. So, I've marked out some days. I'm getting ready. Day after Thanksgiving, I've marked off 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. the next day, 24-hour block I've put in there.
I mean, on the days when other sport is taking place, right, it's going to be pretty incredible because that's the thing that doesn't normally really happen. You might have like NBA playoffs and stuff sometimes coinciding, but the fact that you're going to have Sundays that are going to have NFL football plus some World Cup games, that's going to be I'm preparing myself to be exceptionally tired as a result of all of this, just because I'll look ahead to next Tuesday, for example. There's 4 games on next Tuesday. So that's my time, 11 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night is World Cup games. And then if that happens on, a game a day when there's any other sport of mention, I could be looking at easily 14 hours straight of sport without trying to find something.
Is that the most matches on a day is 4?
I think so.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah.
Are they? Is it doubled up then?
So I think they had to originally, right? There were supposed to be multiple games on the day when the first opening day of the tournament, and then they shifted that to only being 1. Yeah. And I think as a result of that, I think the 4 games on the Tuesday is like when there should have been 2 games on the opening day. Because
usually they don't overlap, which is nice. There's not much overlap of games.
Yeah, until the final set of fixtures.
Yeah.
Like the final group games overlap to avoid any advantage, right? But
yeah. I mean, the only disappointing thing I think for a lot of people, Americans, for that will be it's nice if you can kind of go to a pub early to watch a match and then have that, like the match you want to watch, and then that ends, and then you have like an additional one that's kind of going on that you can, watch and not watch.
That's the best thing in the world. That's why I'm looking ahead to, for example, to England's opening game. That's 2:00 for me. So that's great. You're going to go into a pub at 2. That match is done around 4. And then you got 2 matches afterwards, but they're matches I don't really care about. But it means you're in the pub enjoying some
Wales,
drinks.
US, you don't care about?
Not particularly.
That's actually a big matchup. I mean, that could decide who moves on.
For Wales and the US, it's big. Yeah. For the rest of the world, who cares? Gareth Bale versus some overconfident, so-and-sos.
Wow. So-and-sos. Wow. Shots fired. Anti-American Eddie. Overconfident so-and-sos. Is that their hashtag this year?
Yeah, I'll try and get that trending.
All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll call it a day.
See ya.
See ya.